if you're looking for real perspective, you're not asking the guy or the girl on the bar seat next to you, because they want to validate you, right? Their whole purpose is to validate you and the connection that you have together. I think finding someone who has been through this before or who you respect, could be your boss, could be a mentor, could be your mom. Like it could be a friend.
And parents are hard too, because they want to keep you out of pain.
Totally.
So sometimes they're tricky.
Correct. So I think the best way is you got to find multiple pieces of advice, and then ultimately you need to decide what you want to do. You shouldn't do something because someone says you should do it some way, or shouldn't respond to something because someone says that's how you should respond. I think getting a bunch of inputs, you can get inputs from the guy on the bar stool, which will just make you feel better. You can get inputs from your mother, who will tell you she'll love you no matter what. And then you should
get my mother, who always would say, just quit.
But I think getting perspective is important.
Hello, Heal Squad, Better Together fans. It's Better Together with Maria Menounos. And of course, I am not Maria Menounos. I'm Mr. Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, subbing the lovely and talented Maria. I'm going to start it out with this wonderful quote I have in front of me. This one's, this one really hits home. Change is the essence of life. Be willing to surrender who you are for what you can become. Change is very hard for many people, but change is inevitable in all of our lives. It is oftentimes what propels us forward. If you initiate change, you will have proactive management over it. And the outcome, therefore, is more likely to be positive. And of course, that quote is from our guest, Erika Nardini, who runs Barstool, amongst other things, a really good friend of ours. And Erika today is going to talk to us about women in the workplace, career, managing anxiety levels, and then I think maybe even like how do we step into this new world that I think is upon us. So, Erika, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my! And Ken, you didn't mention, we have to say, Erika's actually guest hosting.
Oh, she's the guest host with the most.
That's right.
I love
that's
that.
right.
Wow.
She is.
All right, let's go.
All right, Erika, help us through this. So, you guys are still in the office, though, right?
We are.
You are. Okay, that's good. So you're living and conducting yourself. What are you dealing with? Any college graduates coming in, or do you have? Maybe we start with that. It was somebody who's. I know a lot of kids getting out of school have a ton of anxiety because they're just like, "What am I walking into?"
Totally, it's so hard right now. I mean, you feel bad for the college kids because their college experience, which should be such a fun, like kind of liberating. Your brain can go anywhere. You meet all sorts of new people. You're living away from home. I think it's hard for college kids because college has become so muted. College is already kind of stressful in the US because it's so expensive. So you've got all of this like money your parents are paying or you're paying. And then, your classes are over Zoom or you can't go to parties. Like someone was showing me, we were on a college campus a couple weeks ago, and to get a seat at the bar, you now have to reserve in an app by like 9 a.m. that you want a table for 3 at the bar. Like when I was in college, you just like rolled into the bar, you rolled out of the bar, you rolled to the next bar. So I think, I have a lot of empathy for kids in college right now. I think it's also very hard to get an internship, and the internship or the job experience is very different because 1, it's virtual. 2, there's a lot of uncertainty around companies in terms of what does it look like? Are people hiring? What's your job going to be like? How do you train someone for their job if you're never going to meet them in person? We are hiring interns. We're hiring people. Like we're always looking for great talent. We're like the engine that keeps growing and keeps building. But I think it's getting, it's a really competitive time. People are needing to show what they can do in a job over a video or a Zoom call, where you used to be able to do that in person. And as we all know, that's infinitely harder. And then it's getting more difficult to stand out. So I think those are the things that college kids in particular are really working on.
And so, Erika, what are some of the things would impress you? So if I'm trying to get hired, say, by you, and by the way,
Yeah.
not just Barstool, but by you, and it's like, what are some tips we can give some of the
Yeah.
kids or the parents to their kids?
I'd hire you in a heartbeat, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Erika.
But I really hire Maria. But I think there's a bunch of things. One is that I think one of the great things about the internet is you can learn a lot about most anything, and you can direct your interest and your experience. So if you're interested in healthcare, you can follow a bunch of people, you can read a lot, you can really self-educate. And I like people who've taken the initiative to learn a lot about the subject that they're interested in. I think the second thing, we're a creative company, we're a content company. So for people who want a job in front of a camera, there are a lot of people who come to the table and say, I have an idea for this. I have an idea for that. I could do this. I could do that. You should hire me for this. It's the people who go ahead and start making those things, which are the people who stand out. I think that, you can weed through a lot of candidates by figuring out who's going to put in the effort to showing that they are the right person for a job. If it's a business job, maybe that's writing a business plan. If it's a marketing job, maybe it's giving an example of, how you would differentiate a company's marketing. If it's a editor job or a video producer job, maybe it's producing a bunch of videos. If it's a hosting job, maybe you're showing how you host. But I think the biggest thing that I think people can do is, one, you have to have a lot of persistence. Like, one email to a company isn't going to get you a job. But the second thing is you have to put in the work of, why is your resume? Why are you as a person? Why is your experience? Why is your brain, your heart, your mouth, your eyes, you name it? Like, why are they unique to what that company is trying to do?
Excellent. So what are some of the red flags you see that you just go, no, this is
There's
not?
a lot of red flags. So, I probably get 100 DMs a week, at least 100 DMs of, you should hire me. That literally they will say, you should hire me. You need a Formula One person. You need a finance person. You need a blah, blah, blah. Call me. And like, no offense, like, we're busy. Like, why don't you call me or tell me why you're the person who should be ABC, XYZ, or 1, 2, 3. So I think one red flag is assuming that it's the hiring manager's job to go find you. The hiring manager is probably hired a recruiter, or there's a recruiting part of the company. Like, the job is on you to stand out for the people who you want to hire you, not the other way around. Unless you are in like a very skilled profession or you're very sought after. But for most people, for most of us, like, you got to earn the job. I think the second thing is not doing your homework. One thing, I always find is people will say, I love Barstool Sports. I love Barstool Sports. And I'll say, what do you love about Barstool Sports? Or what's the last thing you watched? And 80% didn't watch anything, and they can't speak to exactly what they loved. So I think just, put the time in to be educated. I think the third is not having a vision for what you would do in a position. And it doesn't matter how junior the position is or how ordinary the job is. I think every person can have vision about what they do at work. So you should share what your vision is. And you might not be 100% right, but the idea of having vision about what you do every day, I think, says a great deal. And not having really any opinion or anything to offer is I think, a big red flag.
Gotcha. And then when someone makes it to the interview with you, can you give me some of the red flags, which I think will also give us an indication of what we should be doing right? But so let's say I get to Erika or one of your underlings, and I'm lucky enough to get that Zoom interview.
Yeah.
What are the things you see that you like and that you don't like, or that will keep someone from getting that job?
Yeah, I think I like energy. I like people who are like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I've done. I think red flags are when people are very flat. I think the second piece of an interview is when people talk over one another. So, I sometimes trip into this. I don't know that I'm a great interviewer, but when you're interviewing someone, to not talk over them. I interviewed this guy for a job as a lawyer, and he just wouldn't let anyone who interviewed him finish their sentence. And everyone observed that he didn't let anyone finish their sentence. So I think that's another one. I think the third is not having any questions. I always, at the end of every interview, I'm like, what questions did I not answer? Or what questions do you have for me? Even if I've answered all your questions, you should still have another question. So like always have another question.
And can I, so I want you to keep your next thought, please. With the questions, I've had people ask questions that will also get them taken out of consideration. So do you know what I'm saying? So what are some of the questions not to ask? Because I know people go, great, I've got my questions. But I know my issues with questions that get asked to me that I go, ooh, red flag. Can you tell me some of those?
I think, immediately asking how much money the person is going to make is a red flag question.
Gotcha.
Asking how long you would have to be in this job to get promoted to the next job is a red flag question. Asking a question that is extremely ignorant and shows that you've done no research about the company is also a red flag. Now, a candidate can't be expected to know everything and have learned everything, but in my world, Dave Portnoy created Barstool. If someone was like, who's Dave Portnoy? That would be a red flag question.
Yes. Yeah. So it's an informed question.
An informed question makes a difference.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think a lot of the questions that will get me is what you're saying is when the candidate makes it about them.
Totally.
What do I get for time off? How much am I getting paid?
Correct. What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? And I think your whole thing is just bring value. Bring value. Your value will come back.
Yep.
Okay, Erika, keep going. I'm sorry.
No. So I think, I think it's really important also to work to show well. So, you don't have to have a lot of money to interview for a job, but you should look professional. And you should look like you care. And professional means different things to different people. It means different things for different jobs. But also, if you're doing an interview over Zoom, I'm actually not a great example of this right now, but, make sure your background is clean. Make sure your kids aren't running around behind you, or your roommate is, around, or your parents are walking through the background. Like, really try to keep it focused so that the person can just focus on their conversation with you. The other thing that I think is really important is a thank you. And following up with a thank you is really important.
Huge. Yeah, I haven't received many, but the few that I have, I'm like, you know what? All right, I'll remember you.
Yeah, that's right. Same.
And by the way, like, I think, showing gratitude along with, because I've also, when I started out in the business, let's say I got to meet with a big director, a big producer, a big celebrity. I was just like, I just want to say, I'm just so grateful that I made it this far and I got to meet with you. And I thank you so much for taking your time.
Completely. I think being grateful and showing interest, where thank you so much for making the time for me, or, wow, I noticed this about the company, or tell me a little bit about, this happened in the news. What does that mean? Like, I think just showing that you're curious really matters. And I agree with you, Kevin, like being grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation.
Yes.
I think that's really important. The other thing I'll say is that it's also equally as important for the person interviewing to show well and for them to show up with their end of the bargain.
Oh, good. All right. So let's move on to that. So let's move on to, your mid-level manager or even an employee, and you're interviewing somebody. This is great. Maria is an excellent person for that. I'm not as strong with that. But
Yep.
Maria, so tell me, I want to hear the
Maria
tips.
is great at this. So, I think what's great about Maria is Maria has, I think, a vision of what she's looking for, and she understands how to ask the questions to get the answer that she wants, or the thing she wants to know. So I think the first thing is you are taking up someone's time, and both people should realize that, but you're taking up someone's time. So how you show up to the meeting matters. Are you on time? Are you focused? Do you have questions about this person's background? Have you taken the time to look at their resume, look at their social media, read a little bit about the company that they're working for? I think those things are very important, and it's a sign of respect. And I think it's an indicator of how you will be how you interview is sometimes an indicator of how you will be as a manager. And I think it's really important to recognize that the person interviewing is judging you as much as you're judging them. I also think it's very important to be clear about the job. Whenever I interviewed for jobs, and I could tell that you typically interview with more than one person, I could tell if people weren't on the same page about the job, that was a very big red flag. And if people couldn't describe exactly what the job was, that's also a red flag. And then I think the third thing is that sometimes hiring managers tend to air too much dirty laundry or show too much company politics in an interview process. So, I remember I was interviewing for a job at BuzzFeed, and I could tell that these two groups of people weren't on the same page, and the job that I was interviewing for sat between the two groups. And I remember
How aware of you. Oh my goodness. Talk about walking into something that was just going to give you cancer or an ulcer.
Totally. I was like, this seems like a nightmare. You don't like them, they don't like you.
Yeah, but Erika, your awareness, and I think females have a stronger intuition than men, and I think you have to honor it, which you did. Maria's the same way. Typical dude would be like, what? I don't know. And just next thing I know, I'm in the middle of it and going, oh, I hate my life. Mm-hmm. That was so an awareness as a candidate to go in and observe.
Completely. You're observing the culture, you're observing someone's management style, you're observing the dynamics at play. There's a lot that people share, which indicates really good things and can indicate really bad things. And I think as a hiring manager, when you're interviewing someone, you want to be thoughtful to what you're projecting about your company and what you are projecting about yourself as a hiring manager.
Very interesting. Okay. So now, we get in there and we get the job, and I think it's about bringing value when you get that job and you get in there. But I know what was really hard for Maria was the workplace toxicity. And we're in entertainment news, which is a tabloid. So you can imagine that just wasn't who Maria was, and it's not who she is. But we hear from so many friends that they're in these toxic work environments. And I think this next generation coming in, the Gen Zers, as much as I think they're better in many ways than the millennials and the Gen Xers, I feel like their one blind spot is maybe not having as much of the resilience, right? So they're going to be hypersensitive to what. Yeah. So sometimes they're going to think they're in a toxic situation or not, but then other times we know for women and men too, but especially women, there's these toxic work environments. So I guess let's take it from, we'll start with the young candidate, the emerging candidate going in, and then let's take it for the person that's already in a toxic situation. So for the person coming into the job, I would think obviously show up on time and bring value, but maybe take it from there. And let me throw some curves at you as we do.
I think I'll give you an example. I just hired a fantastic woman named Olivia. And Olivia and I had a one-on-one today. And Olivia came in and said, what's your expectation of me? What does success look like for you?
Wow.
Which was awesome. So I was like, let's go, Olivia.
May I ask, how old is Olivia? May I ask?
she's probably late 20s, I would
Wow.
say. Mid
Good
mid
Olivia.
mid to late 20s.
Okay.
She had a notebook. She had a pen.
Yes.
She was very clear on what she wanted to get out of the meeting, which I love. And that was her question, which was, what does success look like for you, for me? And I thought that was a great way to start, because then I was able to share with her, here's what I'm trying to get to. Here's how I'd like us to work together on it. Here's what I don't want you to do. Here are the pitfalls you should be aware of. Here is how I would love for you to resolve challenges as they come up. Like, it just was a really great way to enter the conversation of, what do you expect from me? Like, what do you want out of this? And then how do we get to that place together? It made us, I think in any work environment, when you're with a team, when you're on a team with someone, it makes all the difference. You and Maria are a team.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're on a team with someone, if you have a good team, a team shouldn't be toxic. You have different skills, you have different positions, you're working towards the same goal. So that, I think, is really important. I think the second thing that's really important when you join a job is just to listen and to learn. So the more people you can talk to, the more perspectives that you can gather. You'll file no company is perfect, no manager is perfect, no person is perfect. So you're going to file some things away of like, ooh, that's weird, or that guy seems like a jerk, or ooh, I don't like that, but I love this, and this person is interesting, and they seem like they could be an ally for me. So I think the more you can listen at the beginning, the better off you will be. And then I also think it really, we hired another guy, a great guy named Edwin, and Edwin, 2 weeks into his job, made a PowerPoint of, here's everything I've learned. Here's what I think we're doing great. Here's where I think an opportunity is. Wow. And here's some things that aren't, and he was very gracious with, I was like, oh, these are things we suck at. And he was like, well, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, like, here are some things you could get better at. I really appreciated that, because It takes courage. It also shows that he was thoughtful and he listened and he has a vision for his job. So I think those things are really important.
And it's funny because in a toxic work environment, the Edwins of the world, and I hate to say it, let's say it was Olivia who did that. In the toxic work environment, it's either, wait, who are you to tell us we suck?
Totally.
One, or two, this mofo is going to take my job. So totally. I must destroy this person.
Correct. Yeah, toxic work, I think there's two things. Toxic workplaces and insecure managers are a disaster.
Yes. Oh my God.
I remember being like kind of early in my career. I had this manager, I hated her. She sucked. And she probably thought I sucked, but she was a person who was good at managing up. She was not good at managing down. And once you got beneath the surface, you saw that there really wasn't that much depth there. And she was just trying to cover everything, take people's work, trying to look good versus do good and be good,
But Erika, I've seen so much of that in corporate. It's totally. What you just said. It create the appearance of I'm working hard versus working hard.
Totally. And I think the people who are focused on the appearance of working hard versus working hard create toxicity, because then it's a shell game. And it's also, they're so insecure about being exposed that they've got to kill any threat, right? And that is a really hard place if you're, let's say like Maria, where you want to work hard. Yes. Like, you're there to work. You want to do something. Yeah. I think it's also hard when you're blunt, which Maria is. I'm very blunt. So it created a lot of tension for me in that relationship, because I didn't like my work being taken. I didn't like her work ethic.
You were probably being misrepresented.
Totally.
Because she saw who you were. So it's like, Erika's not doing anything. Erika's mailing it, whatever.
Totally. So I think, the other thing I think that you've always got to look out for when you're interviewing or you're joining a job is, are there too many people working here? I think that's sometimes something you can get a feel for. I remember I have had a lot of corporate jobs.
So aware, Erika. Yes, because I remember at certain networks, too many people.
Too many people.
So not enough work to do. And so guess what? We as we learned yesterday from Nick Vial from The Bachelor, he said there was a study about boredom. People will choose pain over boredom. So when there's not enough work, they're bored. And so what are they going to do? They're going to get into mischief and trouble and toxicity. Continue. I digress, Erika. You're just striking all sorts of chords with me.
No, I'm on the same page. So I remember taking a job and I got into it and I was like, ooh, there's just way too many people here. There's not enough work to be done. And then it creates, look, when you can go to work and instead of doing work, you can gossip with your two friends at work all day and then gossip with the two other friends. And that's not healthy and it's not productive. And I don't think it's good for people because then you end up, what did you do at work? You just gossiped all day. Like, I think there's a lot of jobs, which is why I like startups and why I like entrepreneurs, which is you have to work very hard in a startup. When I got to Barstool Sports, there was 12 people. We worked our ass off because there was too much work and not enough people. And I'm always a manager that likes a little bit too much work and not enough people because it keeps everyone really busy. Now that can go awry, and that's gone awry for me. But
me too. But I also feel the same way you do.
But I don't want to be in a place where, one, it's just not really healthy, and it makes the norm. The norm becomes bitching about the company, bitching about your coworkers, inertia. And it's like, life is short, as you guys know, like life is so short. We get one great chance at this thing. So for me, if I'm going to spend all day at work, which I do, I want it to feel motivating and fulfilling. And I recognize that like I'm part of that equation. I got to show up and be positive. I've got to show up and do something. I've got to show up and work hard. But I think, I think it's really important for people to recognize inertia. I think being understanding of inertia and being resilient also kind of go together. One thing that I think is very dangerous right now with, younger people, sounds strange to say, but like, some days work sucks and some days you're going to get feedback that you didn't do a good job. And what I see happening a lot is people don't want any feedback or they only want positive feedback. And there's, what's happening right now at work is that there's becoming this thing of like, you didn't do a good job equals toxic. And that's actually not true. Like toxic is negative, it's harassing, it's grinding, it's grating, it's demeaning. Hearing from your boss that you did a bad job on a project is development. And I think the risk for people who don't want any who don't want any critical feedback, and sometimes that feedback can be negative, people who don't want that are not going to be made better. And that is, I think, a question every person has to ask themselves at work and in, frankly, probably anything is, do you want to get better? Like, do you want to be more than you are today? If the answer is yes, then the best way for you to get there is to learn from the best, be with the best, get feedback from the best, and to go on your journey. If you don't want all that, then that's where kind of like the corporate thing, then go someplace and hide and get the best paycheck you can.
Go live in your parents' basement. Yes.
Totally.
I just get that.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, I think pain is, we grow, through pain, from childbirth on. And
totally.
And I think that, it's going in with that mindset. Erin Brockovich was on the show and she said, go into your career like you're playing professional football. Someone's going to try and stop you from getting over the goal line. You're going to get hit, but you have to have that mindset. I love that idea of looking at it as development versus toxicity. Mm-hmm. But yes, I think there is a knee jerk now. But I think knowing for emerging people going in there, knowing that it's going to be tough, and you know, when you go to the gym and you work out because you want to get in shape, it's pain, you know. So everything is like that, and most people, if you say, do you want to be better? I mean, you have to be a whole other kind of person. Go, no. Most people are going to say yes. Well, this is what, unfortunately, we can only lower the bar so much. You know, I always say to people, like, if there's an easy, pain-free way in Hollywood to make it, as I coach celebrities and stuff, tell me. Yeah. Like, I want to know so I can help other people, but I don't know that way. I only know it's the most competitive business in the world. Yeah. And, you know, you've got to, like, play smart, be aware. And that's what I keep hearing, too, is, like, you have such an awareness, Erika, that was beyond your years. And I feel like what the younger generation can do, because they are so much more aware than our generations were, use that awareness, but don't use it to the detriment, you know, of seeing things that maybe aren't there. But I love that about your development versus toxicity. Yeah. I think unfortunately, I think our generation has to, we have to change a little bit in terms of how we communicate. Because I used to say at AfterBuzz, like, listen, I can't re-raise a person from 22 years, however their teachers and parents raised them. So I can't go at them and say, listen, here's all the problems. This is all the mistakes you made. I have to say, listen, here are all the positives. Yeah. And here are the blind spots. But the good news is, if we can fix these, we can get, we're great. You can go way next level. Yeah. And I think as a manager, for me, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, I always say I only deal with what is, because a lot of the kids I worked with were programmed to just be all about themselves. I would have to take the time, and I didn't mind doing it, explaining to them what the value for them personally, fixing these blind spots, or, how it'll affect them personally, how they will achieve more, and then they would hear it. It was never enough to say, well, this is really bad for the companies. This is really bad for your coworker. It'd be like, huh? What? What's that have to do with me? But when I say, well, here's what it does have to do with you. And if you can, if you can learn how to leap these hurdles, man, world's going to be yours. And then I got them. Yep. That's right.
Yep. I think the other thing is that not every generation values the same thing. Like, I think one of the great things about being in your early 20s or mid 20s is you value your life much more. Like, my generation was like, work. Yes. If you work more, you make more money, you can buy stuff. Like, that's the conditioning of older generations now. Younger generations are like, I don't really know that I want a corner office. I don't really know I want to work that hard. I'd rather have a great life. Yeah. And I think those are also really great things. And I think the magic is probably somewhere in the middle. Yes,
I agree. I like that about them, because why maybe like die at 55? Right. And I love that they're much more about life experience than they are. The disconnect is, us trying to force our way onto them. Yeah. That's a problem. We have to accept that. And by the way, kind of see the logic of it. It does make sense. Then what we need from them is to say, okay, then you're not getting the second house, the nice car, the yacht, the Prada bag. You're right. Don't be mad. So that's, again, it comes to that awareness, which you had and still have, and the self-awareness to say, it's not what I want. I always say on this show, I have my best friend from college, and he was out of work one time. He works in banking. I'm picking up the call. I know the VP at B of A. I got this one, that one. I'm making all these moves. And he kept. He goes, but listen. He goes, I'm going to get another job. He's like, but to be honest, he's like, I'll get another job because I'm good at what I do. I have great recommendations. He's like, but, I'm not about that. He's like, I'm about my two daughters. He's like, I want to work till 6 every night. I want to go home and be with them.
With my kids.
And I'm like, you know what? Amen. And wow, you're my hero. And he knows. So but he's also he's one of the few friends that I can go, Raz, check out this Trans Am I got. Or I can say to him, I got this other house I'm looking at. Yeah. He's like, that's great, Kev, because he's not jealous or envious.
That's right.
He's happy with him. And
Yep.
so that's the tricky part, is having that self-awareness to say, it's not really, I don't really want that.
Important to me. That's right.
Yeah.
You always said something really great when we were working together, where you would mentor all these hosts and you would say that the thing that they find to be the worst thing in their life ends up kind of being the best thing in their life at that moment. They don't know it. And I think with Erika's self-awareness, I'd really love to know, Erika, what are some of the questions that you ask yourself, or is there an exercise when you're in those situations where you're overly stressed and you want to kind of get a third person view of, what is the situation? Is it actually toxic, or is it something that, I'm kind of viewing in a mixed perception?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think every person should have sounding boards, and different people offer you different things. I had lunch with a girlfriend yesterday who's going through kind of a tough time at work. She thought she was going to get something that she didn't end up getting, and the communication of it wasn't great. And she was ready to go in today and have guns blazing and screw you, blah blah blah. I was like, well, maybe we think about it a little bit differently, because just being on the other side of that, sometimes the cookie doesn't crumble your way, and sometimes you don't get what you want. But that doesn't mean you take your toy. I'm mixing
right,
out.
and you're also reacting. You're not responding.
Right,
so now you go into territory where I say you're a double loser.
Right.
So they already beat you once. Now
Correct.
you go in with your torch and light the bridge on fire. Now we've undermined all the great things we did at the company all this time.
Correct. So it's like you got to play the long game on that. But so here's what I would say. I think it's very easy to ask for advice from people who think or act just like you. Your roommates, your best friends, whatever. Your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. People who are like, yeah, you're totally right. You're totally right.
So Erika, you're not going to, this quote is not a quotable certainly for Barstool Sports, but one of my things I'll always say when I speak is the person on the bar stool next to you, your friend on the bar stool next to you, any advice they give you is based on one thing, keeping you on that bar stool next to them.
Correct. That's exactly right. So if you're looking for real perspective, you're not asking the guy or the girl on the bar seat next to you, because they want to validate you, right? Their whole purpose is to validate you and the connection that you have together. I think finding someone who has been through this before, or who you respect, could be your boss, could be a mentor, could be your mom, it could be a friend.
And parents are hard too, because they want to keep you out of pain.
Totally.
So sometimes they're tricky.
Correct. I think the best way is you got to find multiple pieces of advice, and then ultimately you need to decide what you want to do. You shouldn't do something because someone says you should do it some way, or shouldn't respond to something because someone says that's how you should respond. I think getting a bunch of inputs. You can get inputs from the guy on the bar stool, which will just make you feel better. You can get inputs from your mother, who will tell you she'll love you no matter what. And then you should get
my mother, who always would say, just quit.
Yeah,
that was literally my mother. That was her advice with everything. Just quit.
Totally.
Like, no, Mom.
Not bad advice, But I think getting perspective is important. One of the things we've done is we've created this Facebook group. We've created two groups. One is like a college network called Work Like a Girl, where women are connecting with women in college, are connecting with one another about what it's like to get into the workforce and jobs after school and being a student athlete. And so women who don't know each other personally, but know each other on the internet, can talk about what's happening at work. We have a Facebook group where people are talking about all sorts of career advice and career opportunities. So I think things like that will give you also perspective from a bunch of different people. And then ultimately, you just have to have your plan and to see your plan through.
Okay. And so now help us navigate through a true toxic work environment. So I think we figure out whether this is developmental feedback we're getting, or we're in a toxic situation. But now we're in that toxic situation, and we've got that manager or coworker who's gunning for us. And because I think with most of the people that listen to our show they all want to be better. So these are people who are like, they're playing by the rules. They're working hard.
Yep.
They're honest. They're ethical. They want to be good human beings, good moms, good wives, good sisters, friends, and want to succeed. And then we know that there's those other people out there that see that and go, "Oh, hell no. She's gonna take my spot." And what do we do to navigate that?
Yeah. Yep. So I think there's varying degrees of toxicity, obviously.
Yes.
I think if you're on your second or third toxic job, then you should be thinking about what's toxic in this situation, which I think is just, you got to check yourself on that a little bit. Let's say the job is really toxic, and there are a lot of jobs that are, and a lot of environments, to what you've talked about, Kevin, which are extremely toxic.
I mean, like, I can't even believe some of these people are still working for the things that they've done.
Completely.
And even if statistically, there's a couple of staffs that have so much cancer and brain tumors and even deaths, and no one has looked into it from the environments.
Completely. I think being in a toxic environment and swallowing it is one of the worst things you can do. So personally, I would leave. And, it's not always that easy.
Right.
One thing that I always did, and I give other people the advice to do, is if you're in a toxic environment and you can't make it better, right? You can't, move to a different job, or it's just the environment at large. There's nothing you as an individual can do. I always put a date in my calendar that is, let's say, 2 to 3 months out, or I do one date a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out. The 3 month out date is get a new job. The 1 month out date is what have I done to get a new job? And the 2 month out is how many people am I talking to? How many jobs have I applied for? How many, so it just it gets you out of the negativity of what's happening today. And it gives you a goal of being someplace else.
Gotcha. But here's what's scary. So Erika, like, let's say I'm only at a job 3 months. I know for me, the red flag on a lot of young people's resumes is when I see 18 jobs in a 6 month period.
Totally.
And then when I see someone who hung in at least a year, but even a year is sketchy to me. But when I see, 2 solid years or more, I go, no, this person's. So so
sometimes it's hard because leaving, is leaving not an option.
Right.
I think that's
this
hard.
Is what's discouraging, because I agree with what you're saying. Is we used to say, let's start digging the escape tunnel. That's what I would, I would like,
same thing,
and so we would do that. But, because sometimes there are just certain people that, you're going to say left, they say right. I mean, there's no way.
Completely. It's just not work.
Right. And I hate that, because I'm trying to be a positive person to see what we can do. But before we get there, what advice do you have? Do you try to talk to these people, communicate with them? Can you give me some hope?
Yeah. I think it's good to always have a conversation, and it's kind of like, I learned it in like skills for adolescents. It's like, I feel because.
What is this?
It's
I'm writing this down.
So when you blah, 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 it makes me feel blah, 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 because it makes me blah, blah, blah. So I think it's always good to try to have a conversation and to try to mitigate the situation or mediate the situation. If that doesn't work, I think it's always important to use your voice and to say to your manager, hey, I am in a toxic, now maybe it's your manager who's toxic, in which case, like, is there an HR person?
Yeah.
Do you have someone else in your group?
Because sometimes the manager says, okay, noted. Now you're even a bigger threat to me.
Correct. Yes. Which is hard. So I don't know that I have the perfect answer for that.
No, I don't. Can I just give a moment of empathy for women? Because when I was at MTV, I got hired for a show called Singled Out, and I noticed in my contract when I got it, like, wait, you're only on for 8 weeks. I'm like, but the show runs for I don't know how many months it was, and it turned out the one guy, the head writer at the time, he was a failed stand-up comic who was booed off stage in Boston. So, and probably then I had a thicker Boston accent, so he was like, I don't care who hired you, and he didn't say this to me, no, mind you, but he was just like, I hate you and I want you out of here. Ooh. So for those 8 weeks, no matter what I pitched, no matter what jokes and situation sketch,
didn't matter.
No, he was like, and to a point, he's like, you can't talk to Chris Hardwick or Jenny McCarthy. You have to sit over in the corner. And I just was like, this was my dream to work at MTV. And he pinned me down a lot. And I just kept every day seeing weaknesses on the show and then bringing value in those areas. And so little by little, I was impressing producers and people around him. And his like underling, I think we were at a big pitch meeting and the talent was there, Chris Hardwick and Jenny McCarthy. And he was just, because comedy writers have these little zingers, and I'm a comedy writer too, but I just don't use that. I don't use that wit to tear somebody down. That's, anyway, it's like 2 or 3 times just really undermined, and then really cut me hard.
Yeah.
But see, when you're a guy, you can just follow him to the men's room.
Yeah.
And just say, listen, enough now. Okay? Yeah. I'm like, enough, because you know what? You're using your weapons. Well, I have mine. And he knew what I meant, my 2 fists. And I said, and I've had enough.
Yeah, I'm done.
And I'm like, so, who knows back then, but even still, I had so much on him, but that's what a guy can do.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was like, and the irony was, eventually, I brought so much value. Not only did I get the year contract, they fired him and hired me.
I'm sure.
And I remember saying to him, I never wanted this. I wanted to support you. Yeah. I wanted to help you, and I didn't want, but a guy can do that, and it's harder for a female, and it makes me feel terrible.
Yeah.
20 years, and by the way, it's not because I'm such an involved male. No, 20 years of seeing Maria deal with this. And no matter, just like all I could give her advice, Maria, keep bringing more value. And the more value she brought, the more they tortured her.
Totally.
That was like the irony.
Yeah.
It was because, that's a tough one. I love the idea. I'm sorry, because I go to the escape tunnel too. I love the 3-month plan of like, you know what? And get, the other thing too is when it comes to awareness, like get with your people, right? Like get with people that share your values, your goals. I mean, does that make sense, Erika? And again, now I'm going too far out because I've never had to be in this position.
No, I agree with that. Everybody has their people. And ideally, when you join a job or you go work at a place, like you were saying, like you impressed all the other producers. Yes. They became your people. And that's a great thing. And I think, the more you can gather your people, or no job is perfect.
Right.
So the more you can have your people, and hopefully your people are positive and your people want to help you move forward through something, and they too want to move forward. I think if you surround yourself with, it's all about who you surround yourself with. And if you surround yourself with people who you think have good values or share the same principles you do and have the same ambition and want to have a little fun or have great senses of humor or whatever that may be, that just makes it so much more fun. And it also makes it that much more meaningful. And maybe your boss isn't your person, or maybe the producer guy you work for is an asshole. But if you gather your people, you ultimately in the end will be successful. And I think if you find yourself in a job where you don't have any people, then you should not be in that job.
Ooh. Yes. Yeah. Again, awareness. My generation, no, and a male, no awareness. Just, cool job, good salary, I'm in. Just never taking the time. So then, so I know we don't have you for too much longer, but now can you help us with anxiety? Because everyone seems riddled with it, but I feel like it's crippling. It's at a point, it's crippling people.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone has moments where they're overwhelmed and anxious. Like there's things that happen that you do that you wish you hadn't done. There's things that are happening outside of your control. I think COVID and the pandemic has made people so isolated that that voice inside of your brain that says you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or you're worried, or you're fearful, or you're paranoid about other people, that voice has just gotten so much louder. And I think that that's really hard. And I think that, I don't have any great solution for anxiety. I think the first thing is to acknowledge that, everyone feels anxious at some point in time every day. And, it's all about, can you quiet the negative voice in your head, and can you do things that help build you up and surround yourself with people who support you and love you and, want the best for you. And then it's, to try to find connection wherever you can, and to appreciate and be grateful for that connection that you can get. There's some statistic that like a lot of people's happiness is based on like random interactions. So like when you go to Starbucks and you're nice to the guy at the counter, and the woman gives you your coffee and you say thank you and smile at her, and she says you're welcome and smiles back at you, like that helps you feel better. So just embracing those moments, I also think is really important. And then, trying to do one thing for yourself every day that just makes you feel good. I think that's important.
And okay, so there's one more thing that just came to my brain, and this is a big one. I was just telling Kelsey about this, negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there is a level of sophistication, especially with 20th century negotiations, that regular people are not prepared for.
Yep.
And we are just lemmings. And we walk into, I forget, was it you, Kelsey, who was negotiating something, or I was explaining to you a process of, how hard skilled negotiators will negotiate salaries, and it's just a game and a joke to them, and it's your life, and the techniques they employ we're not aware of, and we get sucked into it, and now I'm at a point that if I'm not in a 21st century negotiation, which is getting to yes, the Harvard study, where both sides are like, this is what I want, I value what I want, but I also value what you want, let's see where we can find the middle. But if I'm in a 20th century negotiation, which unfortunately Hollywood is still stuck in that, I just now walk away. There was a deal Maria had, and it just kept going and going and going. And I just said, Maria, no, out. And then the person's like, no, wait. I'm like, no, I'm out. You just want a zero-sum gain. And I'll do a zero-sum gain in terms of if I know the greater good, if there's a greater thing, which I did one for 5 years, and I ended up getting a ton out of it. But can you tell the regular person who wants to go in and ask for that raise how to go about doing it, or how to negotiate a salary? And I don't mean a first timer, because I think there needs to be humility involved with that, maybe because it's a first time salary. But I feel like for civilians, for middle class people or lower who don't have parents in business, who didn't study this, we just walk in blind and get slaughtered.
Totally. I'm the same way. Like, I don't think I'm great at that either. And I had to kind of figure it out on my way and learn from a lot of mistakes, to be honest with you. So I think the biggest thing is if you're going in to ask for money, I think the biggest thing in a negotiation is to understand what you want and to feel like the person on the other side of the table values that same thing. So in the case of asking for a raise, does your boss value what you do? Do you have quantifiable evidence of what you have done for your company? And, have you gone above and beyond what your scope or your job is? Do you have the best attitude at your job? Are you the most productive? Have you invented a new way to do whatever it is you do? Are your partners really satisfied? Do your peers feel better when you're involved? When you go ask for more money, and women in particular struggle with this,
Yep.
Aim high, go in with confidence and go in knowing your worth in that what you have contributed to that company. There's a lot of research that show that men get paid on potential and women get paid on performance, which always keeps women kind of toiling versus betting on the upside of someone. So, I struggle to break that myself. But I do think when you are going into, get more value, it's, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what I want to do. Here's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to have a conversation with you about the value of that and how I can move from being where I am today to here's my goal. And your manager isn't always going to come back and be like, oh yeah, here's a blank check. You got your number. They may say, hey, I can get you half of the way there. Or actually, I don't think you're doing above and beyond everybody else. I don't think you're crushing it. You got to be open to that conversation too.
And by the way, and that's an indicator that maybe it's time to move on. If in fact you are doing the things that you said. Now, by the way, and I love what you outlined, because what you outlined is also, does the boss value what you do? Present quantifiable evidence. Have you gone above and beyond? Are you positive with your peers? Have you been inventive? But these are things you can be doing to get that raise as well.
Correct.
So which I love. And I think if you get the answer of you're not doing much, then really take, which I used to get all the time, but for the 20th century boss who's playing that game with you, you're not really that good. Or actually there's a lot you could work on, and it's just a game to them. But know that you're being played. If you really know in your heart you do, then you know what? You got to go somewhere else. But I also love that in that negotiation, you present everything you've done, but then you tease them, which I love what you just offered was, and by the way, in the future, here's the upside. These are all the other things I'm going to be doing. So now the guy goes, you know what? I'm not only rewarding, but I'm investing and I'm going to get even more back for this. And if it's a decent boss and they don't have the money, at least now you're on their radar.
Yeah, that's right.
To know they have to come up with something. Mm-hmm. I think it's really a tragedy about performance versus potential, us betting on potential with men and performance with women. And I will tell you, of all the ridiculous raises I've been asked for, it's always been the men. And I will tell you on 3 different occasions, it's been, and Steven's going to laugh because he's my producer, but Steven knows some people have come to me I want to talk about my raise. I'm like, really? Because I want to talk about firing you.
Yeah, 100%.
No, the 3 people have come to me. It's well, I'm actually looking to get rid of you. So this is
totally,
but the women, no. And they've, yes. I think, if you can manage the anxiety, you can put together the presentation, do all the steps Eric is saying, and be honest. If you really are doing all that, walk in, be aware, hear what the manager's saying. I think that's the thing. Now, Erika, there's kind of sometimes, I think, if you shoot too high with the money, you can offend the boss too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can be preposterous, right? Of I want to make $1 million, or I want to make, and that also can be a turnoff. So I think you want to say, hey, here's where I'm at. I've done some research on here's what my peers make, or here's what people in the industry
quantifiable,
make.
Like you said, quantifiable evidence.
Here's what I think people are making around me. I'd like to understand, I think I am worth that. Here are all the things I'm going to do. I'd like to understand, how I can get to this number. And that way you can put a big number because you're wanting to understand how do I get to that number.
Love it. Erika, so I don't want to keep you any longer. I think this has been incredibly valuable. And I'm so grateful we have someone like you in the workplace, and especially at such a huge company with so many influencers. And God, there's a whole other discussion, which maybe we'll do in our follow-up about, because you work with a lot of men. So it's managing that, but then managing women is a different thing. I think we're better together, to be honest. I love a diverse staff. I think totally. But Erika, I know your podcast is every week, right? You guys, right? Yep. So you can get this from Erika every week, and a lot of fun too. Erika, Erika, we are going to stay in touch for sure. And
give my love to Maria.
I will, and we'll be in touch. And I have some stuff I want to run by you.
Okay, great.
Kelsey, where do we find Erika?
We can find Erika. So her podcast is called, excuse me, The Token CEO.
Genius.
It's amazing. It's a really, really good show. Maria was on the other month. They're awesome. She's awesome. So that's on Apple Podcasts. And then Erika's Instagram handle is EKANARDINI. So EKA.
So Kelsey,
Nardini.
as a emerging career woman, what was your thoughts?
I wanted to hear. I just wanted to keep listening to her for forever because I wish that I would have had that advice when I was in some of my previous work situations.
But you're so young that it was moot.
What's that mean?
Meaning, like it matter. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered because you worked for the very person that would be like, I just have to get out of here.
No, you're right. Yeah.
But it was too early to dig the escape tunnel.
Truly.
You did it all right.
Yeah,
That's why you ended up here.
No, and I think I know I did.
But now now that you're working on a more sophisticated level, these are things to be.
And having these tools. She was amazing. She, like, that entire show. I mean, holy cow, for kids coming out of college, like, I have so much empathy for you guys. Like, I feel so badly, but I wish I could, like, and I will send the show to every single one of you. I mean, she gave the freaking playbook.
But I think also even other people in the workplace too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think she's absolutely right on a lot of, like, kind of the in trendy opinions from your peers coming out of college are very dangerous to have right now.
Yeah.
Like, people hate unpaid internships. People saying that any negative feedback is toxic. Like, having people come out of college with those beliefs in mind is going to not set them up for success.
No, listen, block them out. You just do you, as the kids say. No, really, focus on you, your career, what's good for you. Get in, however you can get in ethically. But if any like powerful platform or amazing job or whatever, just I was always big on just get me in the game. Just give me a crack. Just get me in the game. Whatever it's going to take. Whatever I'll work for free. I'll pay to work. I've done it all, and I still do.
Yeah.
But I think it's blocking out the friends on who have different beliefs. I think I love the idea of seeing the difference between developmental criticism and toxicity.
Yes.
That's a big one.
Yes.
That's a big one. I think now that we're
having the awareness to be able to like sort between, okay, am I just being sensitive or is that actually really shitty?
I think awareness is so big, period, Kelsey.
Agreed.
So you're aware of your environment you're in, you're aware of your boss, you're aware of your value, you're aware where your weaknesses are. Like I never went into these things aware, and I don't think you did either. You just kind of floated in, right, with a big 100%. Smile.
Well, and like Erika was saying, I mean, I feel like, again, some of these past things that I've gone through, which again, I actually wouldn't change because I'm where I'm at now. But if I was more aware, I guarantee I would have seen red flags, guarantee it. And again, that's something that you have to, when you see it, determine if it's worth it or not, right? But it's like, at least you're aware of it and you can kind of prep yourself going in versus being blindsided, because I think that's the worst.
I mean, for me, like the big realization I had, Kev, you were talking about, the people asking for a raise. Well, actually, I was going to fire you, right?
Yeah, we've dealt with it, Steven.
That's crazy.
But for me, I have a realization. I've worked for you for 8 years and I've never had to ask for a raise. Never had to ask for a raise. Every raise I've asked for from you was for somebody else. And every single time, if I look at the questions she said to ask yourself, like, have you changed the game? Have you updated things? Have you made things in a new way? And I'm like, I did all those things. But then I talk about all the people that I got raises for.
But that's a good
point. One of them.
You did all those things.
That's a good point, Steven, because it's like,
but that's as a manager, now I will say as a manager, I've been aware. I was not aware as an employee, but as a manager, I'm always, and you see here, Kelsey, and I always have to explain to Maria, like, you bet your ass I'm concerned with Kelsey's health. You bet your ass, your parent, everybody who's around us, I'm very aware, but then also like, hey, this person's time, they're so dedicated, they're killing it. We have to figure out something
Right.
financially
Right.
more. And so I think it's if you're aware as a manager seeing ahead, and the great ones do, they'll see ahead and go, before you even ask for your raise, it's, yeah, here you go.
Right. But
Here
that's
you
how
go.
it should be.
That's how it should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. And it's
And,
like you said,
by
on
the way,
both
and then
ends.
sometimes people get overwhelmed, especially managers. I get it.
Totally.
And that's where you kind of have to do the polite tap on the shoulder, saying, listen,
Yeah.
you know, I'm here.
Yeah.
And this is what I want.
And going off that, Kev, too, I think something that's really important, and you jumped in and talked about it because you always talk to me about this, is she talked about having your soundboard, right? Your soundboard and really making
your
sure.
challenge network. Who gave us that?
Adam Grant.
Adam Grant.
You have to really look at those people who you are taking advice from. Really take a hard look at that. And it's like, do I want to be them?
How many times, Stephen, do we see that? They get the advice from the people on the Barstool, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, but this one said this. I'm like, what?
Why would you take
the
advice?
echo chamber.
I mean, one of our friends hadn't worked, really didn't have any experience for the job she was taking, and was just lucky to be hired. Very base salary. And the friends were already saying, no, you're supposed to get 100 and something thousand a year for that job. And I was like, everyone get out of her head. She's never done this job before. Like, we're literally talking about going from, being, working at a trophy store to now doing a high-end job in the back end of computers. It was like, it was a total apple and orange.
Yeah.
And even, more so, like a crab apple to,
Right.
a pineapple.
Whoa.
But, and I'm like, just get in, prove yourself, bring value, block them all out. And now this person's super successful because of it.
Right.
But the friends already, I'm like, what do you know?
Well, and you can get screwed. Like, I have a story, and I don't know if I've told you guys this before. I have a story where in my past job, was like up against this. Like, I had a dilemma and I was like, couldn't figure it out, but I knew the right thing. And it was like doing something and being paid or not being paid for it. And I was like, nope, I'm not going to be paid for it. I'm just going to do it. And I remember I asked a lot of people and they were like, are you kidding me? You got to get paid for this. And I went in there knowing it was the wrong thing and got destroyed. And I remember being like, why the F did I take advice from these people?
From civilians.
From people who all they meant was like, it was like they came from a kind, good place.
Yeah, some will come from the place to protect you, which is commendable, and then others are insecure.
Ooh, it was
and jealous
bad.
deep down because they don't have, they're too lazy or not brave enough to go. Would you say that a lot of Maria's success has come from her relationship with me, Kelsey?
Yeah.
And Stephen, would you say that?
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, I will tell you,
yes.
Maria would have been Maria no matter what.
Right.
Did I, open the doors and facilitate and manage? Yes. But she's a 1 in a million talent. But that being said, if you guys subscribe to that belief, which I think is valid, then I will tell you, Maria worked on my movie for a year and a half for free. And all the friends said that. Nope. But it was through that internship with me that I was like, I have to find a way to pay this girl back. I had one of my dearest friends who was working at a place called Channel One. He said they're looking for hosts. They get about, they're going through a casting agency. They have 2,000 people. But he goes, but I can sneak her into the top of the pile. And the rest is history.
That's crazy.
Because she dedicated herself to me. And then, of course, I continue to dedicate myself to her for that year. So, and for every time that doesn't work out and you get taken advantage of, the chances are you're going to meet the right person who is going to, and you're always going to get something out of this. You're always going to get something out of it. So, that's a big thing, is really having a good challenge network and then having, like she said, the sounding board.
Yep.
Well, also, Kev, it's like, sometimes it's not even malicious. I think that a lot of times,
right? Yeah. No.
You can trust somebody, they give you advice, but if their advice was working for them, they wouldn't be in the position they're in.
Well, right. And like Kevin's saying, they are protecting you. They're, there's a whole other like slew of places it's coming from.
And there's a level, and there's again, not malicious, but there's an ignorance because they have not had that success.
Right.
So I'll always say that to someone too, like, look around. at the person who's advising you. Like,
Right. Do you want what they have?
yeah, like maybe this, because I know the people that I go to, for moral dilemmas, that's different. I have some other people, but for business stuff, I'm going to people who are super successful in
Yep.
business
Yep.
and super successful. And if you don't, I think the takeaway here is, if you, amongst all the other takeaways with Erika, if you don't have those people, find them. And then there's a whole art to finding them. And maybe it's a regular Guy Friday thing. I don't know.
Ooh, I
but
like
there's an
that.
art. There's an art to finding these people and how to get them in your corner.
I would love that on regular Guy Friday.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I feel like I'm good at doing that unconsciously. Like I for some reason in my life I've been very fortunate to be able to pick up mentors pretty
well,
and
Stephen.
point out the people that I'm like, I want to know from that person. I want to know from that person.
It might be a male thing, which we can work on, but again, you don't, and me, we don't have that awareness. We just do. But here's what you are doing that you are aware of. When Maria and I came into Chili's, you were not only a great waiter, but I remember you saying you were even extra like on your toes because Maria was pretty, which I love. But anyway, but you brought value to Chili's. And then when you came to work for me, you brought value. And you are willing to share your gifts with other people. And I know Steven, he shares them with people who have nothing. And I have him sharing them with people who have a lot. And I try to bring in more of the people that have a lot, because I know that they see Steven go, oh my God, who's this guy? And how do I help him? And now he's picked up other mentors, females and males, that are different from me, different perspectives that are really helping him, but you brought value. So there's like really the trick is to getting a mentor, is finding a way to bring them value. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. Will you mentor me? They'll walk up out of nowhere. I'm like,
Excuse
I
me.
don't have time because I have so many other people, but really it's when they bring you value. Gary Vee says this too. He's like, the person who he's like, the person behind that camera phone that's shooting me right now is learning more from me than my vice president of sales.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, because they're with me every day, getting information, getting knowledge. But that assistant is doing all the grunt work and bringing tremendous value too. So it's bringing that person value. God, I had a mentor once who I think he just offered to drive someone to work for like 6 months.
Wow.
He's like, I'll just drive. I'll be your driver. Like, he was fortunate enough, lived at home. So the parents were cool. He was like, I'm in the basement, had enough money saved. I wouldn't
Smart.
go. And you know what? Like, yeah, he's a super successful guy now. So anyway.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Erika Nardini. And please, guys, please subscribe to our YouTube page. I think for the value that we bring here, our subs are very low. And I want to work on that. I mean, one of our goals is not only keep the show going in Maria's absence, but to try to build it for her so she can have more time to get well. But please, if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's a big thing. I keep forgetting to say it at the top, so hopefully you haven't tapped out by now. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow.
That's right.
The sun will come out tomorrow. And it's out Kelsmeyer 22. It's at
2. No 22, but
out
you were
Kelsmeyer
close.
2. At Kelsmeyer 2.
I know you have an idea of how to change. You told me. We just didn't talk about it.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that in the branding journey of Kelsey Meyer. And of course, at Stephen the Mew Photo. And you guys, please be sure to check out our regular Guy Friday show.
Yes.
On Fridays. But yeah, until then, what do we say here?
Be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
Wow, Winnie, did you hear that? Be present. I'm going to work on that.